Good evening, greetings everybody. Actually, it's good afternoon. The local time here in Tennessee is 5:43 Eastern Time. The temperature is 59 degrees. And enjoying this beautiful sunset, or what do you call it? The twilight zone. Anyway, I thought I'd share this beautiful day. Currently traveling on Interstate 81 South. We're about mile marker 15. So we're 15 miles north of Interstate 40. Good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from beautiful state of Arkansas. Once again, I am on my way to Dallas, Texas. The local time here is 2:03. Temperature is 77 degrees. Alright, today is Monday, November, what is it today? November 18, 2024. So today is Monday. That means another continuation of the life story of my family back in the Camiguin Island, the Philippines. The last time, I think I was trying to tell you that my dad's best friend, kind of an unofficially adopted brother, LP, has opened up a electronic shop and also a video rental place. So back then, if you wanted anything electronics to be serviced, you had to go to Manila or Cebu, which was very far. As you know, the Philippines is consisted of 7,000 islands, and you would have to take the ferry. I believe Manila is about 2 nights and 2 days. Anyway, LP was a very gifted entrepreneur. He, whatever he put his mind into, I don't know. My dad says he has that Midas touch. It just turns to gold. He was also the very first one to open up a hamburger shop in the whole Mindanao, I believe. And it was called Sesame Street. And yeah, it was a big click. But today I would like to take you back to the island, and I think I'm gonna focus on my childhood education, or the lack thereof, and everything that stems to that. As you remember, my mom was a graduate of college in Cebu City as a teacher, but I don't think she ever taught in a class officially, formally. I think that kind of got derailed when she rescued my dad from the bad situation in Puerto Bugo, Cagayan de Oro City. So education is, I don't know, as my dad, you would imagine back in his childhood in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, he was not very big in education. he didn't believe in education. Although he had a very high IQ, he, I don't know, I guess he didn't want to be taught. He taught himself. He was one of those stubborn, hard-headed people that, I don't know, they're gifted in one way, and unfortunately that kind of passed on to us, his children. My brother and myself, we were not really encouraged to study hard. Now, back in the island, we did not have a formal private school or any advanced school, or, you know. But I remember my mom would I think my mom bought a piece of plywood and made it into like a chalkboard, and she would tutor me. Not sure if my brother was part of that or not, but I do remember her teaching me how to write in cursive. Until to this day, every time I write my name or the letter J, I always think of her. Isn't that weird? Until to this day, every time I write my signature, my name, I remember how she wanted me to, you know, write it, curve it, and style it and all that. But yeah, as you could probably guess, it didn't go so well. The local school that we had, the local public school, was not in the best of, well, they were not all that gung-ho about teaching kids. There was no discipline. Well, I don't know. Let's just say that whatever they did, it didn't work. As you can see the evidence, right? So while I was going to school locally, school was kind of an option. Nobody cared if you showed up or not. There was no government official that came around and took you to jail or took your parents to jail if you didn't show up. In fact, in a village living back then, I distinctly remember that a lot of kids would bring books and notebooks and all that stuff. Me, I was bringing diving goggles, because on the shore, the ocean shore, there would be lookouts on the ocean for fish to be jumping in. You know, if there was commotions up in the water or the ocean, scale is closed. There we go. If there was a commotion that the fish were evident, somebody would ring the bamboo bell, and you know, more than half of the village came down to the seashore to go fishing. That was the most celebrated activity in the village. And believe it or not, some of the students also went to go fishing. So yeah, education was not a priority, I suppose. Activities as far as what we did as kids, as you would imagine, there were no department stores to buy toys or to buy food or anything. There were small little, we call them sari-sari store, which is a kind of a store in front of your house that sold, snacks, rice, sugar, salt, tiny little stuff. The point I'm trying to make is, as far as kids go, you guys would probably just go to Walmart or some kind of a department store, maybe go to Sears store back then, Prangies. The toys that we wanted to play with, well, we couldn't buy it, but we had to make it. And every year, certain games were assigned to a certain month of the year. Like rubber bands. I don't even know what their names are in English, but we had all kinds of seasonal games. And so that's how we learned how to make stuff, because, as I said, you couldn't buy it. The most dangerous, extremely dangerous game or toys that we made were wooden big bikes. Big wheels. I think you call them big wheels. Remember the plastic big wheels back in 1980s and 90s? I don't know if you could still buy them. But we would make this wooden big wheel, 3-wheel wooden carts. And we would go and take the steepest hill downhill, and we would clear up all the stones, the bushes, the rocks, and whatever else. And it was, I guess that was our version of a roller coaster. I know you guys in America makes those things. I can't remember those. You take a little boxcars, I think you call them, right? Boxcars? Yeah, I think that's what it is. Anyway, we would take these to the very steep hills and just let it rip. And boy, oh boy, man, sometimes we got into sometimes the wheel would break off. We'd end up in the bushes in the ditch, and we would have scrapes, and well, fortunately nobody ever died. And the funny thing is, not only that we would take the steepest hill and rip, we had about 4 to 5 kids riding on this wooden vehicle, and it went really fast. No helmets, no elbow pads. I don't know, we survived. Another activity as children, we didn't have a park to go to. We did had we played on the streets. Back then, the traffic was, every hour or even less. And fortunately, even though the whole island road service system was mostly made of gravel and dust, the barrio itself were blacktop. So it was nice. It was nice to be able to play something that wasn't really dusty and all that. And of course we had our own basketball court, and we played in that, played hide and seek and all that stuff. We would play rubber bands, marbles, kundisi. One of the things that is most memorable as for me and the kids of my age back then was you would take a coconut leaf and you would form it into a ball, like a, well, you form it into you net it into like a you know, something, yeah, a native ball, and we would use that as a, what would that be equivalent to in the U.S. Batter ball, right? Batter ball or dodgeball, I think it is, right? Well, we had that. We didn't have any rubber balls like you guys had, and that went well for a while, and that kind of got old a little bit, and there was no weight to it, so you couldn't really throw it that hard or that far. So what did I do? I put little tiny pebbles and rocks inside. Well, coconut leaf or husk could only last for a certain time, and it would disintegrate. And you know what? Back then I was also in charge of my dad's garage or shop. And what did my dad bring from the United States? Yeah, a box of rolls of masking tape. We didn't have duct tape back then. We had masking tapes. So I would wrap the ball with the masking tape. Oh, that got really solid and really heavy, and if that kind of hit you, it would leave a mark. Anyway, all kinds of, there were three places that you went to play as kids. Either you went to play in the center of the barrio, you went fishing, or you went up to the hills and hunt for birds, fruits, hide and seek, all that kind of stuff. Some of my native friends were very gifted in climbing, you know, those 200, 300 foot coconuts. And we would, I would buy the milk, the condensed milk, and they would provide the coconut, and we'd have a coconut salad kind of a deal. Now, another aspect of that is that, as I mentioned earlier, that my dad bought this swamp place, and he was trying to build this place as a resort. He had his own shop, he had his own sawmill, he had his own first welding machines. So hanging around with my dad, I was my dad's what do you call it? Apprentice. I got the tools. I handed him all kinds of tools, and he taught me how to do shop things. And I know what you're saying. How come I can't fix things? I gotta be honest with you. Most of the stuff I know how to fix stuff. If I can't, I can figure it out. My biggest problem is I don't want to do it. I don't want to be crawling underneath the truck. It's not my truck, and I don't know. Think of me lazy or whatever, but if something were to happen, I've been known to be able to dabble a little bit, nothing nowhere near close to long haul area would do, of course not. But my point is, in the island growing up, oh yeah, that's another thing too, is that for some reason my brother was my parents' favorite child. I guess they favored him a little bit more than me. In the Philippine cultures, kids slept with their parents, believe it or not. And I was always jealous of that because, well, why does my brother get to sleep with my parents and I get to sleep downstairs with other people? Which that kind of a story is interesting also. And one of my biggest jealousy back then also is that when my brother wanted to go to the village and play, I couldn't go and play because I had to stay and help my dad, give him tools and be his assistant. Oh, that made me so mad, so jealous, because I couldn't get to play. But years and years later, until to this day, my brother knows a lot less about fixing stuff than I do. And also, I got to spend time with my dad. So what I viewed back then as a loss, it turned out to be a blessing. Oh, what are we doing here? Now, as I mentioned, that my brother kind of slept with my dad and my mom's bed, while I got to sleep downstairs with my dad's foreman. You see, my dad met this guy named Art, and as a young kid, he was in charge, I think what you call him back then as a ranch hand. Is that how you, a ramrod? So he was kind of like the supervisor of all the labors and of all the projects and all that stuff. Well, Art he found a local girl, got married, Art was living in our house as a second family, believe it or not. We had a really big house. And so Art got married, had kids, even long before, I think that even before he had kids, I already started sleeping in their bed, in their room. And so Art and I always viewed Art as my second dad, and his wife Hilda as my second mom. They were my second parents, and also their children, I viewed them as my brothers and sisters. I didn't know it at the time, but it turns out that Hilda was my mom's distant cousin, I believe. So, yeah, that went on for a while. Enjoyed life. Art was a very good parent. He was a very disciplinarian kind of a dad. And he did not mind whipping me once in a while like his own. I remember me and his oldest son, Gilbert, we would do some mischievous stuff, and me and Gilbert got whipped. But I never developed I have never developed a resentment against that. I did not have the attitude of, who do you think you are, whipping me kind of a deal. I kind of welcomed it, I guess, or I didn't know better. It is. It was also Art that taught me how to swim, believe it or not. So anyway, Gilbert was born in our house, and his second child, Famila, was also born in our house. So yeah, I've always viewed them as I have a second family. Anyway, the reason I'm trying to tell you that is that story is going to unfold a little bit better later. Alright, where do we go from here? As I mentioned also that my mom was the pillar of the community. She donated a lot of funds and a lot of things, and lead activities and coronations and all that stuff. Sadly though, as that went on, let me backtrack again. While these things are going on, people from all over the world, as I mentioned earlier, flocked to our house to stay with us, because back then there was no hotel or resort that you could go to. And believe it or not, it was our place got world famous by word to mouth kind of a deal. We have met people from, countless people, and a lot of them got married to the locals because my mom was a matchmaker and all that stuff. All right, so unfortunately, my mom and my dad every time they had a fight, they would have this volcanic eruption of a fight. Oh man, the yelling, the breaking of stuff, the throwing, the slamming of doors, and oh boy, glass breaking, and it was ugly. But as nasty as it was, sometimes I'd get so scared that I would hide underneath the bed. As nasty as they ever got, all the yelling and all that stuff, my dad never laid a hand on my mom. Never. I have never ever seen or heard my dad lay a hand on my mom. And sometimes when my mom would lose control, she was just as a feisty, fiery, little girl that boy, she would lose control too. I think she did mostly all the breaking stuff. When my mom would lose control, my dad would pick her up by one hand. My mom was a very small lady, and my dad was, well, he was a brute. He was a white gorilla. Boy, that guy could pick up stuff. He was a very strong, very strong guy. And my dad would pick her up, lay her on the bed, and just lay on top of her until she was all done. Well, not long after that, back I think in 1981, somehow their marriage fell apart. Let me back up a little bit. Yeah, their marriage kind of fell apart, and as I also mentioned, that my dad was a sailor, a civilian seaman or merchant marine. So he was always very interested in boats and ships and all that stuff. Well, he heard of this lifeboat. No, I think it was a Faro cement boat that was laying on a side somewhere in Mindanao, and somebody abandoned it, and my dad, I don't know, I guess I remember all of us going to where the wreckage was, the shipwreck was, and bought water pumps and all kinds of equipments. And yeah, my dad salvaged the Faro cement. If you don't know what a Faro cement is, it's a cement, instead of made of steel, it was made of cement boat. And for some reason, it was laying there on the river for I don't know how long it was. And we salvaged it, and that river, it was not a very clean river. Because upriver, that's where people went to the bathroom. Oh man, I tell you, you swim, and then when you if you're not careful when you went up to the surface to catch some breath, there could be some very gruesome surprise floating on your head. That river was gross. But anyway, my dad salvaged that. My dad had it towed back to the island, and it was floating there for a little bit. I think they got into another fight. My dad ended up abandoning it. My dad was he was a very good mechanic, but he had a nasty habit of starting something, and before finishing it he would start something again. So everything that he ever did was never finished. I don't know why, but that's the way it went. Alright, another salvage story was that my dad heard of this humongous lifeboat of a big ship, and so once again my dad went to go get it. I don't think that my brother and I went with him at that time. We were left behind in the island. So it was just my dad and his laborers that went to salvage this lifeboat. And that's when the trouble really started. My dad met this woman in Iligan City, and I don't know, it was one of the saddest memory of my life, I suppose, for the whole family. He did something very horrible. Supposedly he hired this woman as his secretary and brought her home with us. Talk about insult, right? And my mom never recovered from that. So as she was living in our house as a secretary, my mom finally figured it out, and that's when they permanently separated. I remember my mom was so hurt at that time that she moved out of the house. She had a little tiny hut built up in the hills, kind of like a native Filipino hut. We were living there. No running water, no electricity. It was as native it could be. And you know, I had some big resentment at that time as well, because I remember when I would be passing by our house, and I would take rocks and throw it at the house. Remember the movie Forrest Gump? Remember when Jenny threw rocks at her house? Yeah, that was me. And you know what else? Not long after that, the harmony and joy in the village kind of fell apart as well, because the woman from the secretary, she also started importing her people in. It's kind of a biblical story, isn't it? Remember those the Jewish people that started marrying the Amorites and the Hijabites, and pretty soon they started coming in droves. One of the saddest part about that is when my mom was living in that house, that refrigerator was open to everyone. But when my stepmother would be, she started putting a chain around the refrigerator. And the people that used to be welcome to go in and out of our house, in the kitchen or whatever, they were no longer welcome there. I don't know why my dad did that, but yeah. Anyway, I will have to continue this story in another time. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and as always, have a good and godly day. Johnny Be Good here. Peace.